Hello everyone, my name is Ankit Singh and I'm the co-founder and CTO of Parallel Dots and moderator for today's webinar. I also have Kushank joining me in the webinar, who heads business development for Karna AI, leading AI solutions provider for market research companies. Karna AI analyzes different content types like videos, audio, text for top market research companies and is powered by Parallel Dots text analytics APIs to process open-ended survey responses for their customers. In this presentation, which should last about 45 minutes, we'll be talking about why open-ended survey analysis are important and how to automate their analysis using NLP and text analytics APIs. At any time, you can ask us any questions using the chat at the bottom of your screen. You can type them during the webinar, but we'll save them to the end and then we'll answer your questions. With that, I'll share with you the presentation and then I'll ask Kushank to start the webinar.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. This is Kushank here. So I head the business side of things at Karna AI. We are essentially a market research AI technology company. And what I'll be speaking about is how we do open-ends analysis to be specific and text analysis to be more broad about it. I'll share with you what my learnings have been from a market research perspective. Now, when we want insights about any brand, the most direct way is to ask people through surveys. The surveys are of two types. One is closed-ended, where you have specific predefined options to choose from. And the other is open-ended, where you ask a question and the person can just answer whatever they feel like. For example, if there's a question about what do you like about McDonald's, either you can give them options like ambience, service, and price, or you can get a very interesting, nuanced, open-end response. For example, this response is from one of our surveys where this is a response by a teacher who said that she likes to go to McDonald's because all the students in her class are very familiar with this place. They don't feel shy when they go there. It's a kid-friendly place because of the atmosphere, and they give those toys as well to kids. And this is one option which we as a researcher couldn't have thought of if we were asked to provide options. So, and also providing options in a way influences the response of the respondent. So, which is why open ends is the way to go if you want pure responses or feedback. While open ends are great, the big challenge is that how do you analyze so many open ends? Assume typically in a survey in a market research survey of open ends, you have around 10,000 open ends. Now, the traditional way of manually analyzing this involved you divide this entire analysis work amongst 5 researchers. You get 2,000 each, and typically the best you can touch is around 600 to 700 responses a day for analysis. That takes 3 days for doing the entire analysis. And after spending 3 days and 15 man hours, you get to the insights. Now, the challenge with this approach is that you cannot iterate.
So Kushank, I'll just stop you on that.
Sure.
So that insight that you got, is this based on the experience that you have seen with number of your customers? Are they still doing these kind of things? Are they still investing so much in manual techniques?
Oh yes.
Because that surprises me, yeah.
Because there is always that adoption curve is that initially there is skepticism, then it goes up. I think we've just crossed this skepticism phase when it comes to open ends. In a lot of places, overwhelming majority, it is done manually as well.
Interesting.
That's what the experience is. But yes, people are realizing that this needs to change because there are a lot of challenges when it comes to human analysis.
Exactly, and that was only 10,000. I think I have seen some cases where you generate like millions of
in specific cases,
yeah.
Yes.
So I don't think it scales well.
Yeah, I'll tell you those cases where it goes beyond 10,000 as well. So one thing that was a big problem was, suppose you are doing this open-ends analysis, and you are done with 4,000 responses, and you realize that somebody realizes in the process that people are speaking a lot about the political inclination of the CEO of McDonald's as a reason behind whether they like or dislike the brand. Now, this was something, the researchers were not aware of as a potential topic. You discovered it midway, and the problem is that you cannot go back and look at all those 4,000 responses that have already been analyzed or coded.
That'll be too expensive and time consuming.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense. So with automation and something, you can do iterations. I do one level of analysis,
then you iterate
get some understanding, I build it again, and it doesn't take a lot of time. So that's helpful. 15 man days takes a lot of cost as well.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you're doing 5 different people are doing this analysis, you hope that like everybody is on the same level of understanding and everybody is doing the analysis or coding by following a very specific protocol. Because if you don't ensure that, even you and I would code a response differently based on our understanding. And 3 days is a lot of time, long enough turnaround time in the insights industry. And what I also find as a big issue is that 600 responses a day is still a lot, and there are very high chances of error, fatigue, and more importantly, fraud. I mean, it's a natural human tendency that you do 400 and
you skip some and
they just put something in those 50. Who will know? And they take it forward, which kind of defeats the purpose, and it is very prevalent as well. So yes, there are these challenges, but we do overcome these challenges by doing this analysis through the Parallel Dots tools and technology. And the way we have been coming to your question about whether clients do it manually or automated, the way we break in is by like giving a challenge to the client that okay, give us one project where we'll do coding with automation from our end. It can be any old project of yours, and you compare that analysis with what you do with the manual coding. So we make it a man versus machine coding, and when the clients are open, we see that this is good enough to convince them and get them on board.
Interesting.
And the best model for open ends analysis. This is, I think, a very important thing. Sometimes people irrationally believe that man is the best way to go, but there are a lot of challenges which we have mentioned. Sometimes people say, "Oh, just do all the analysis by machine." I mean, this is wishful thinking, in my opinion. What you really need is a man and machine. Man does the shepherding of the entire process, while the machine does all the grunt work and makes sure that the entire analysis converging towards the hypothesis that needs to be tested.
Yeah.
So that's the way to go. And
it's interesting, Kushank, how you mentioned that, and that's another thing at Parallel Dots we also recommend. So we also don't think that AI has reached a level where you can rely on it to do the complete analysis. But I think what you said is perfectly right, is that you still need the humans to sort of do the end, I would say the end decision making or the end retrieving the insights, but you can ask machine to do most of the grunt work. That's right.
Yep. And I think it's if you're saying that to the clients, that's a very, very right thing to do. You cut the hype out of these things and just present the reality. That's the way to go.
Perfect.
Like while open ends analysis, I did miss this one. So here essentially you'd use open ends analysis not just for your surveys, but also for social media listening. This is where some area where it can go up to 500,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
These are high customer reviews on Amazon, which are low in number. But you get customer emails, which is very high, and you get CRM logs, which is very high in number. So the same underlying model or framework can be used for all these different data sources. And while text analysis is one area, We are also working with Parallel Dots in a lot of new frontiers in market research when it comes to text analysis. For instance, we do a lot of qualitative interviews, which can go up to 50 pages long. It could be like a long discussion on Mexican burger, where you want to, very first understand the respondent and just talk about the texture, then about the taste, then about the look and all those things.
I'll stop you on that, Kushank. So what you're saying essentially is rather than taking a traditional survey where you ask people to fill out the surveys, you actually ask people some questions and then they respond. And then you're saying that you can have a lot of text generated with this new technique, and then you may also want to automate the analysis.
Right. This is the mainstay market research.
Okay.
This is the mainstay market.
And why would you say are these better than your traditional surveys?
I mean, surveys give you a quick glimpse, but these are
comprehensive.
This is more comprehensive. You get 5 people in a room, and for 1 hour discuss on a particular topic or a product, and do a very in-depth discussion. This has been a long-standing industry practice.
Okay.
But what has been missing is that these discussions can last up to 50, 70 pages long. You do make the effort to first transcribe everything from voice to text, give it that structure, but then somebody has to read the entire 70-page thing, break it into different topics, and then summarize everything. Now, I don't think AI can do the summarization at this point, but what really helps us is that if it breaks the entire document down into the component structures and then gives a broad read of the analysis. This is something we have been doing with Parallel Dots, and this is really a new frontier in market research and could have a great impact. Another thing is you can use chatbots to get more out of your surveys. For like any survey you're taking, you're making a lot of investment. Getting someone to give that answer, it is the thing. But I mean, if I just ask you, why do you like iPhone? I think maybe iPhone is, you will give an answer. But I'll ask you, why do you like Tropicana juice?
Yeah.
You will have an answer, but you won't have a very nuanced, in-depth answer.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's why what needs to get the answer out from you is follow-up questions, which are probing in nature, which is what we are achieving with the chatbot. So if here it's you asking, do you like the chocolate? The respondent says, no, it was ordinary. It understands that this is something that he didn't like the chocolate.
So you're saying it's all AI analyzing each of the responses.
Yeah. So and then it asks, okay, what did you dislike about it?
Interesting.
And it says that it was a little bland, I guess. Then it with your CSS technology, contextual semantic similarity, it figures out that this is something related to taste. And it says, what specifically did you not like about the taste? Wow. This is something, I am spending X amount of money and getting some insights. With doing this, I'm like, a respondent is spending more time. My investment becomes 1.1 of X, 10% extra.
I believe,
and 10% extra investment. But the return I get in terms of nuances and depth of the insight is tremendous.
Interesting.
And finally, one more interesting thing is like I learned of this concept called word embedding from Ankit, and so I'll explain this with an example. For example, we have 2 million tweets about FIFA World Cup, which we had collected from Twitter and put it into your AI engine to get the embeddings. And we were specifically interested in finding out what are the words people are associating with Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay.
So there were these usual suspects like Messi, Portugal, and Madrid, and Real Madrid. These were the things. CR7 was a surprise to me because I'm not so familiar with football, but people tell me like,
it's very obvious.
This is like a basic rule of thumb for somebody who's into football.
Yeah.
So what was interesting was there was discussion about Golden Boot because
now itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not that they will get to play too many matches, and
Yeah,
getting
that's
4
true.
goals is probably good
Probably
enough
good
to put
enough
him in the
number.
reckoning.
Yeah.
So this was an insight, and another interesting thing was people calling him a goal machine, which was good. And also there was a lot of discussion about defense as well of Cristiano. Essentially, when we looked at the tweets, what we realized that people were appreciating that it was not related to his say he's just crushing the defense of the opponent, but it is like he's working hard on both the sides of the field and working well on defense as well.
Very passionate about the country, about playing for the country.
So this is a football example that I gave, but when it comes to analyzing brands, we can understand what are the words people using out there for different products, and this really helps in understanding what's going out there. So I've given my 2 cents, but it's over to you to explain the nuts and bolts. So thanks, Ankit.
Thanks a lot, Kushank, for explaining why open-ended surveys are probably the way to go to find customer feedback and how to automate them. So I believe Kushank has explained the why, and I should now touch base on how to analyze open-ended surveys automatically. So in the next slides, I'll actually touch base on the technology that powers modern day AI, NLP algorithms. And then actually I will give a real demo of analyzing an open-ended survey taken from Amazon reviews. I'll use some of the tools developed by us at Parallel Dots, and I'll do the whole analysis just on spreadsheet to show you how you can find insights very easily. So I think the very obvious first question is why machine learning? But I think when we are talking about automating the whole thing, machine learning really becomes the most important tool. But it's interesting to really note that even before machine learning, people were trying to automate survey analysis. People had this thing that it was a cumbersome job, it was a manual task, it involved so much cost and money, which Kushank already explained. So people were using keyword-based approach and rechecks-based approach to find patterns in the data. So these approaches are very good when you have very fixed patterns like email validation, or if you want to find phone numbers. These always have a very structured pattern. But an open-ended customer feedback, an open-ended survey response, people are just speaking their mind. These techniques definitely don't really give you a good accuracy. You really need to have more sophisticated algorithms. And fortunately, in the last 4 years, we have made so much progress in machine learning, especially in another subset called deep learning, that analyzing open-ended responses with very high accuracy is possible. And we at Parallel Dots are leveraging some of these powerful algorithms to build really interesting models to analyze open-end surveys. So most of the people will be aware of different techniques of machine learning. I'll just want to quickly skim through these different techniques. So basically, we have supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. In supervised learning, essentially, you're giving machine a lot of labeled training data. With that, I mean, you're really manually annotating the data, and then you're giving that to the machine. And then you're asking machine to predict the outcome of an unknown data point. So it's a lot more resource intensive. You have to build these labeled training data. But having said that, these are very, very accurate models. So your sentiment analysis is essentially a supervised learning algorithm. You first give machine examples of positive, negative, and neutral sentiments, and then you train a model, and then you expect machine to start giving sentiment off.
So Ankit, on this same theme,
yeah.
I think what used to happen before was you have a dictionary of words, negative words, and that was you use.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah, exactly.
So if I'm saying this performance was not bad, which was actually for my call, but nonetheless. So if you're saying not and bad, it is a positive sentiment, but it used to classify as negative.
So
right?
Definitely when algorithms were not that sophisticated, people were still doing sentiment analysis by building dictionaries of different negative words and positive words. And essentially what they were doing is they were matching the keywords. If they get a match for disappointment, it will be a negative. They get a match for appreciation, it gets positive. But there was not really semantics involved in that. And that's why these algorithms were not really getting that much popular, or were not really ready for industrial usage, I would say.
Right.
But yeah, that's an interesting point. Then we have unsupervised learning algorithms, which will be the core focus of my discussion in this webinar. Unsupervised learning is really powerful in the sense that you can run these algorithms on raw data sets. So you do not need labeling, you do not need to annotate your data, and you can still find very interesting patterns. How we can use that patterns in the context of open-ended, analyzing open-ended survey responses will be something that I'll be touching upon in the further slides. And I'll show you how powerful this can be to really analyze open-ended survey responses. Reinforcement learning is another technique. It really became popular when Google's DeepMind system beat world's best player in Go. Still far more sophisticated and very difficult to build. So I'll not really be touching upon this. So I'll tell you the approach that we follow here at Parallel Dots when we are doing any text analytics project, and whenever Kushank sends us any open-ended survey response to analyze. Most of our algorithms are based on deep learning, which I said are very powerful algorithms to find patterns in the data. There's something called a pre-trained model. So just to explain it, think of it like a small brain, which has all this knowledge about a particular domain. So if I give it all the data related to a restaurant reviews, it will have all this knowledge about different dishes and different ingredients that goes in those dishes. It will have all these concepts mapped together. That's what a model is. And it's a very popular term we use in AI. So we use all these different pre-trained model that is already available in us. And then we use techniques like unsupervised learning and transfer learning. So the idea behind this is what we realize in real world is very few labeled data available, and labeling the data manually can be an expensive task. So that oftentimes we have seen is not an option when we are doing any real world customer projects. So using a right pre-trained model and using transfer learning or unsupervised techniques, we are really trying to build powerful text classification AI algorithms.
Ankit, what I understand is like a pre-trained model is something that has a general understanding of the language, and then
of that domain as well.
And the domain as well. Yeah. And you give it some pointers with some transfer learning, some examples. My question was like, when you're making these, you make it in-house, right? These pre-trained models.
Yeah.
What kind of input goes in? I mean,
we literally give it just the unstructured, huge corpus of raw data. That's all. That's all you need to give it. So when I talked about restaurant reviews, we just go through Yelp and we crawl all these reviews and we just make a pre-trained model based on that. So there's absolutely no supervision that's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have these algorithms which can find concepts. So it knows that Chinese restaurants will always have dishes like noodles and Manchurians and things like that.
Right.
So it does have those concepts automatically figured out.
Nice.
And then this is the most interesting unsupervised technique that we have built at Parallel Dots. And why this is interesting is it helps you to classify a piece of text. A piece of text can be a review, a response to a survey. It can be an email, as Kushank said. So a piece of text can be anything which a customer sends to you. And then using this technique, you can classify it into topics that you can define. If you think about it, and if you are aware of how whole supervised text classification works, you first need to actually label the data, and then you need to train a classifier, and then you can expect that classifier to start predicting the categories of the unknown or unseen samples. But using contextual semantic similarity, you can do it on the fly, meaning you do not need any training data. You do not need to train an algorithm, in fact. So it's an unsupervised approach, very powerful in the context of analyzing open-ended surveys. And the way it works is it essentially, again, associates any topic with some keywords that are related to that topic. So a topic like quality, it associates that with keywords like fluffy, soft, things like that. And that's where the whole model concept that I explained in the previous slide comes into the picture. That model is so powerful that it can figure out those concepts. And this this visualization actually explains it, that if you use a keyword-based approach, and let's say you want to classify, so you have a lot of different reviews you have crawled from Amazon, and you want to now classify into a topic, let's say called price, then you'll have all these keywords called price, charge, build. And you're really thinking of all these keywords, and still you may miss one or two keywords which may occur in the reviews. Using CSS, you really expand that domain. So you have to just give few keywords, but then it can also find out the synonyms. It can also look at the spelling mistakes. It can also look at the different ways that that same thing that represents price can come in that domain. Things like Dove, things like expensive, cheap, free, pay.
I'll add a nuance here. So, there was some product for which we were analyzing Amazon reviews, and somebody had said, I don't know why is it worth $20, something like that.
Okay.
And as a keyword, we had put in only price as starters, and it was able to link it to price because of it understood that dollar is something which is related to price, which we found was very useful. I mean, I wouldn't have thought of it. Exactly. I would have, but it wouldn't be so easy.
Exactly, and that's why one of the biggest benefits, it scales well on all type of data, because you're not really doing any supervised learning here, so you do not have to prepare any labeled data. So it can essentially, you can use it on any domain data. So you can use it to find to classify Amazon reviews, or you can use it to classify your emails. For this, it's an unsupervised.
Ankit, suppose this sometimes happens. Sometimes, suppose I want to see reviews of a cancer drug on WebMD.
Yeah.
Which is a very different domain, right?
Yeah.
So, what is your recommendation on how to deal with those?
In those cases, we definitely first recommend that we will build a more specific and a custom model, because our general models may not work well because they never have any context of medical concepts or medical domain. But see, that's the power of these type of algorithms. In that case, what I can do is I can just go to WebMD. I can crawl some of the different text that comes in WebMD, medical literature. I can again create a model of that medical literature, and then that's it. That model will then, you can use that model to categorize any piece of reviews on any medical website, on any.
So if I tell you that, Ankit, I need a pre-trained model for pharma, how much time does it take to get
well, if you can give me the data, we can actually do it within 3-4 days. Okay. That's all. If you can give me the data. If you ask us to get the data as well, then depending on how quickly we can get the data, the timeline varies. Yeah.
And how much data? As much as possible.
As much as my answer with how much data is as much as possible. But yeah, that's the thing. One of the techniques that we are building at Parallel Dots is learning better representations from less data, so we can actually do.
I mean, if you learn from less data, that is very helpful, because providing learning data is possible, but it's challenging. So
exactly. So with CSS and combined with the other text analytics APIs we have built at Parallel Dots, this slide shows how you can do a very comprehensive analysis and end-to-end analysis of a piece of tweet. So with this piece of tweet, we were able to get the demographic information which Twitter gives. So it's a structured data. Now we had this whole corpus of tweets, and then we first use our intent API. Our intent API essentially gives you the intent behind a piece of text. So in this case, the intent was complaint. So it's actually very powerful to find out what the intent of the user is. So that intent API also filter out spam, bots, and other tweets, because essentially you just need the opinion of the people. But the problem with Twitter is, as soon as you type things like McDonald's and all, you'll have all these random tweets, all this spam and all these marketing tweets that you are not really interested in analyzing as a brand. Our intent tweet is also capable of filtering out any news or marketing tweet, which again does not have any opinion, any user opinion or a customer feedback. So using this, you can really filter out these useless tweets, and what essentially remains are the tweets which have the user's opinion in them, customer feedback. Then you can use a technique like CSS, which I explained in the previous slide, to start categorizing these tweets. So over here, you can see we have categorized tweets into food taste, pricing, staff and service. And essentially, once we have categorized, we'll run other APIs like sentiment analysis, emotion analysis, and then do interesting study, which I'll show you in a moment, doing on a real world data as well. So the whole point is that it really helps you to build a 360-degree customer profile. So, maybe let's say with end of this analysis, you get information like females under the age of 30 years, really are very, very sort of picky about the quality of the burgers, or maybe you can find some information about the ambience. So maybe these people really give a lot of weightage to the ambience of a restaurant. So different insights that you can really derive from these type of analysis.
Right. Ankit,
Yeah.
I see some questions popping up.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone has to ask a question, what's the procedure in this one?
So you can actually, there's a comment box and you can start typing on the comment box as well. And we'll take all the questions.
Yeah, I was not sure. I thought I'll just ask this to make sure others can.
So yeah, everyone, if you can always type in your questions and we'll take your questions at the end of that. So just a quick analysis. We found when we did this analysis for the tweets containing McDonald's. This was one of the snapshot of the results we found, and this smell part here is very interesting. So when we went out doing the analysis, we didn't even consider that this could be one of the topics or themes that people were talking about when they were talking about McDonald's, fast food restaurants. When we did some keyword and topic analysis, we found out that smell was one topic that was coming again and again. So we made that as one of the topics. Then we use CSS to categorize all the tweets into these different topics. So you can see service speed, noise, price, cleanliness, smell, music, comfortable seating, and payment procedures. So these were all defined by us. And again, we didn't do any training. We didn't prepare any labeled data sets. We didn't do any training. This is purely done in an unsupervised fashion. We were able to categorize each of the tweets into these categories. And the most interesting thing we found was smell had the most negative sentiment tweets. So the red ones are the negative sentiments, the yellow ones are the neutral, and the green ones are the positive ones. So we really want to know why are people really so negative about smell? And then there's a sample tweet that we found. There were so many tweets related to this, but there was a funny smell that people were reporting at that particular McDonald's chain, at that particular McDonald's restaurant. And this type of insights is really possible through algorithms like CSS. Starts to really, you can uncover such really key insights, I would say. So having said that, I think there's too much of theory. So let's do some real analysis. So what I'll do is I'll use different tools that we have built at Parallel Dots, and I'll actually do an analysis of a Nike T-shirt. We've collected all the Amazon reviews. We have done the analysis on 100,000 customer reviews, but right now I'll just show it on 100 because it takes a while. We may not have that much time. But essentially, we'll find out overall sentiment. So on 100,000, these are the results we found on the 100,000 tweets that we analyzed. So mostly it was positive sentiment that people had, and people were really excited about that particular T-shirt. There were very few angry and very few sad reviews. But this is essentially another powerful tool. So a lot of the time you may have a negative sentiment comment or a tweet, but you also want to know whether the person was sad or whether he was actually angry, and then accordingly you can prioritize and action that particular piece of feedback. So in this case we defined these topics. So we defined these topics ourselves, and then we'll use CSS. And then CSS then sort of categorizes each review into these topics. And then this was the snapshot. So mostly people talked about quality and the fit of these T-shirts. And most of the negative sentiment tweets were around quality. So having said that, let me just introduce to you the tool by which you can do this analysis yourself as well. So I'll just quit my slide and I'll go to that tool. So it's still under development, still in the private beta. We are slowly rolling it out to the different customers, but essentially what it is I'll first show you the snapshot of the actual file. So here I have a file. I think we just have 100 here. Yeah. We have 100. So we have 100 customer reviews. So this is just a small sample. And what I'll be doing is I'll be uploading this file, this Excel file, into this tool. So let me just do that. So already I have it over here. So I'll just upload it. And this is where you define the topics for doing the CSS. So I'll be defining all the topics that I've already mentioned. And I'll just quickly write it down. So one topic was quality. An important step of using CSS, if you really want to improve the accuracy of CSS, you should always give some keywords which are associated with these topics. Question you may ask is, how do you find the keywords and the topics? I would always recommend to take a small sample and just manually read through and see what are some of the things people are talking about. But eventually, we are also building a tool and an algorithm by which we can automatically recommend these topics and these keywords based on certain analysis that we can do from the CSV. So that's a work in task. So let me just type color. Let me type quality. And let me type the other ones. So again, guys, if you have any questions, we'll be taking them at the end of this webinar. So keep posting your questions now. It's all getting recorded, and we'll definitely answer them at the end of this webinar. So what I'm doing right now here is I'm essentially just describing all the topics. And you can see how I'm actually defining all the keywords as well. Really helps CSS give that context. That's essentially what I'm trying to do. And actually, you have topic fit. You can also give that as a keyword as well. Just reinforces that topic. Then I have another topic as comfort. And I'll define some very obvious things like comfortable, things like feel, things like skin, maybe people. So we have actually done this analysis ourselves. We have gone through some of the reviews and we know that these were the keywords that people were talking about. Size, so obviously it's a t-shirt, so people will be talking about size, big, small, large, loose. Really use your creativity over here. Durability was one of the topics that we identified. Then wash, durable. And then the last one is defect. Let's fade. So, really trying to define what a defect review may contain, what keyword this may contain. That's all we are trying to do. So yeah, I've got all my topics here. I've got all my keywords here. Now I'll just I'll click on this button, get CSV. It'll give me a processed Excel file. So that Excel file, as I will show you in a minute, will have sentiment, will have emotion, it'll have all these topics, and it'll have each of the reviews classified into topics. So it's already downloaded. Let me just open it up. I'll just close it. Desktop is a little bit messy. Yeah. Just open it through Microsoft Excel. Let's see what we have found in this CSV through that tool. Perfect. So I'll show you the original one. The original one was just a raw file which has just the feedbacks. This one is an annotated file. Yeah, so this one has actually review, this one has sentiment, this one has different. So these are the topics: quality, price, fit, comfort, size, durability, defect. And what the algorithm has done, so whenever there is a 1, it means that it has classified that review. I'll actually zoom it because I think one may not be able to see it properly. Yeah. So yeah, I'll just explain it again in case you are not able to see that. So essentially, we had that raw CSV, and now we've got a process CSV from the tool. So now we have sentiment, we have these different topics in which it has the CSS algorithm has classified. And whenever there's a 1, it means that it thinks that it belongs to that category. 0 means it does not belong to that category. Then we have keywords. We have something called key phrases. Then we have some nouns which are associated with that review. We have descriptors, which are basically adjectives. You can see it says good, nice, tight, loose, fit. very powerful tool. And then we have emotion. What was the emotion? So this was angry. Let's actually read that.
Ankit, I would just add this descriptor feature has been very, very useful for us because instead of just getting keywords, which is definitely an improvement over getting everything. Keywords is an improvement, but descriptor is very useful because if I have a lot of reviews about, say, McDonald's, as you were saying, and I just want to know what people are saying about a specific product, like Diet Coke or Happy Meal, which we have is there. So then we with these adjectives, we directly know what people are saying.
Exactly, and that's the plan. So most of the tools you would see, they will just give you a keyword, and you're really struggling to understand what people are talking about. But with these descriptors, the idea is that you really have this ability to find out what type of keywords you want to build. You want to build a keyword of adjectives, you want to build a keyword of nouns, or you just want phrases. So that's exactly this tool does. It really gives you that flexibility. What type of keyword cloud or word cloud, as we say, you want to build. So it's not just a simple keywords. It's also nouns and descriptors.
Oh yes, yeah. Sometimes even I think you do verbs as well, and it is sometimes helpful for us. And one more thing that I noticed was, when we were doing a study, it was for feedback related to smoking of some cigarettes. And we had a topic where we wanted to capture things about intensity of smoke. So we had put a word like throat. Because we saw people were saying, it's hurting my throat.
Oh, like interesting, yeah.
But with the CSS, what came out, and it was very interesting that for one of the products, people were saying it is hurting my chest. Which was like, key insight. So this is useful. I mean, having that machine to do the grunt work and man to do the shepherding really helps.
Exactly. So let's see. So this particular piece of review, it's a comprehensive review, but is really very angry with that particular piece of T-shirt that is got. Let me just. I'll be returning. I paid too much for what they actually are, and then you can see the sentiment is negative. Let's see another one. So it says, nice, comfortable shirt. I wear it playing jogging, tennis. Just expand it, and I'll wrap text. So I wear it playing tennis, jogging, boating, or just out running errands. So let's see how CSS performed in this case. So it classified into quality. So quality is one of the, So it classified into quality. And you can see the power of CSS now. Nowhere in this review has the user ever mentioned the word quality. So it's so much powerful than a normal keyword-based approach. But he definitely mentioned maybe some attribute about quality. So let's just see. So it did mention about things like colors, and that's why it classified into quality. The user did mention about the word cheapest, so it classified into price.
Wow.
Let's see if we have any keyword related to that. We had keyword like cheap, I think, in the tool. So that was essential. Then fit. Interesting. So user didn't really explicitly talk about fit, but it did say it ran a bit large, and it was able to classify that into fit. It classified into comfort as well, because user did mention comfortable shirt. And then because there was a mention about the word large, and it was large and not really fitting him well, so there was a talk. It classified into size. It didn't classify into durability or defect. And then these were the different keywords. And let's see the emotion, and it thinks that there was some sarcasm there as well. So with that in place, what I'll do is I'll have one of my Excel experts. So essentially, this is still just annotated data. You still don't get the whole picture. So now, but the power is that because you have all these things in your Excel, you can use these Excel formulas and Excel tricks. So I have my Excel expert here, Samit. Essentially, what he's going to do now is he's going to run some analysis on this data. And he's going to show us how I can find actual insights from this. So Samit, just show us what all analysis you can do.
Ankit, what I noticed was say you mentioned earlier in the slide that there was 80% positive reviews.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you have to tell me what's the name of this shirt after the call, because Amazon is one place where there is a very negative bias. So people tend to put reviews more when they are unhappy.
Yep.
And, it has a very negative bias. So if it was a survey and you got 80%, I wouldn't be I wouldn't call it so good. But if on Amazon, if you're getting 80%, that's really good.
Actually, this particular is a dry fit T-shirt. Actually, that's the dry fit T-shirt brand on Nike, and I actually use it, and it's actually pretty good.
Okay.
So it's hard to really blame Nike for that. They've actually done a good job with these T-shirts, and I've actually done the analysis, and I know that most of the negative sentiment tweets were because the sellers were actually shipping the wrong sizes, and sometimes
really?
Yeah. Sometimes
you got these insights.
Yeah, we got these insights actually, and what Samit is doing really, he's actually helping us to get to those insights as well.
I now have a takeaway from this call.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Things, so.
Yeah, and you see, like this, the analysis is not even 5 minutes since we have been doing this analysis, and we are going to reach the conclusion. Like we're going to see some insights very soon, and that's the power of this. Yeah. So, fixing our Excel thing. And then we're trying to build some charts, I believe. Yeah. Oh yeah, this one is what I want.
Yeah, go ahead.
No problem. Yeah. So straight away, the one insight I can get is most of the talks were around quality. It was around fit, size, and comfort. So these were the most talked about topics, followed by price. People were sensitive about the price of the t-shirts, but you can see that most of the topics like quality, fit, comfort, and size, these very interrelated topics and concepts were the most talked about by the people. Defect and durability, I don't know if you can see really, they are really sort of merged into each other, but very few people really talked about it. I think the other thing is we've just done this analysis on 100 reviews. If we would do this on 100,000 reviews, which was actually there, we would obviously get a much better insight. But the idea is that just showed you what were the major topics that people were talking about. Next, I think, Samit, we are going to see what were the sentiments associated with these topics. It's very important to know that people were mostly talking about quality, but were they talking positive things or were they talking negative things? So this is what Samit is trying to do now. He's going to use some of his Excel skills.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So he has been able to give us that visualization as well. Okay. You can expand that a little bit. Perfect. So that's very interesting. So obviously most of the talks were around quality. The very first insight that we get, Kushank, and as you said, is that you see all of them, majorly all the topics had only positive tweets. And that goes back to your question that actually 80%, 82% of the reviews, I'm sorry, I'm maybe calling it tweets every now and then, but these are reviews on Amazon.com. So most of these reviews were positive in nature. So that's the very first insight you get. But let's say you would just want to know what were the main topics where people spoke negative about it. So you can see the quality was one issue, and comfort was another issue, and size was another issue that people were talking negative things, which I said. So it's not really the fault of negative size. So that's the idea. You really get to see how quickly you can do this analysis. Within 10 minutes, we were able to find these type of insights. It's all done over CSV, over Excel sheet. So essentially, this gives you the power that you can bring any other data that your organization has, and you can run some interesting correlations. So let's say if you're seeing a lot of negative tweets about maybe all of these things, and then maybe you can have sales figure, Nike analyst can have a sales figure, and you can correlate how sales is affected by the customer feedback of these people.
Oh, that is the reason why we like to do this analysis on Excel.
Exactly.
Because there is no learning curve. Every analyst knows it.
Yeah.
and you are not tied by any kind of features that may or may not exist in any portal that you're doing.
Exactly. And that's why we really wanted this to be an Excel-based solution as well. This was the study that is a snapshot of what we did for 100,000 reviews. So again, you can see quality has been the most talked about topic, and most of the negative reviews were around quality, followed by size. These two were really, and most interesting thing you can see is defect. So defect, whenever it classified, the CSS classified a review into defect, all of them were negative, which is very obvious that if there was a defect, it will be a negative sentiment.
Right. And surprising is that nowadays people don't like durability, they don't really care about.
Exactly.
If we're doing this 50 years ago, I mean, I'm sure that would have been.
These are just color coded different reviews into positive, negative, neutral. And another interesting thing is we just took those reviews which were classified into the quality, to the topic quality, and which had negative sentiment. And we did a visualization using one of the visualization tool that we have. And we found out that most of the topics where people were negative about quality was related to things like thin, sticky, hard. And then you get to think that why these were all dry fit t-shirts. So if a dry fit t-shirt feels sticky to a user, obviously he'll feel bad. Maybe some of the materials could be hard on skin or something like that. So maybe that's why snug and things like that. So really helps in the visualization. All right, guys. Thanks. I hope you like the webinar. Recorded session of the webinar will be emailed to you. It'll be okay. If you have any further questions based on the webinar, you can email it to support@paralleldots.com. We can answer all the questions related to this webinar. And you feel free to share the webinar, the recorded link. I think we'll be sending out to you an email, and feel free to share it with your colleagues or anyone who will be interested in these type of things. And yeah, do visit paralleldots.com/TextAnalytics. We have a lot of interactive demos available here. That's the reason why I have this page open. So I just wanted to show you that we have all these demos that I've showed you, emotion and everything. You can play around with these demos, and then you can download the Excel plugin from this sheet to do some Excel analysis as well.
Good.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time.